Before this story begins, listen carefully. Not every scream comes from pain. Some come from loss, and some from worlds we are not meant to see. This story is set in a classroom, a place of learning, discipline, and order. But on one ordinary school day, something ancient sat quietly among the pupils. This is African Strange Scary Stories. And this is The Girl with the Dolls. This story is said to have happened many years ago in a public primary school that stood at the edge of a quiet town. The kind of school where the walls were cracked with age, the windows had no glass, and learning happened under the heat of the sun and the weight of discipline. Back then, teachers were feared, not because they were wicked, but because punishment was believed to shape children into something better. A child who misbehaved was flogged. A child who talked too much was flogged. A child who looked distracted was flogged. Nobody questioned it. That morning began like any other. The pupils stood in rows during assembly, singing the national anthem with sleepy voices. After prayers, they marched back into their classrooms, dragging wooden desks across dusty floors. The classroom was overcrowded. More than 40 pupils squeezed into a space meant for 25. The air was thick. Chalk dust floated constantly, settling on skin and clothes. The teacher for that class was a woman in her late 30s. She was known for being strict but fair. She believed deeply in order. In her mind, learning could not happen in chaos. She began her lesson as usual, chalk scraping against the blackboard, words written carefully, explanations repeated loudly so everyone could hear. As she taught, her eyes moved across the classroom, trained by years of experience to spot distraction instantly. That was when she noticed one pupil, a little girl. She sat in the middle row. Her head was bent low, resting on the desk. Her shoulders moved slightly as though she was whispering or concentrating on something hidden. At first, the teacher thought the girl was sleeping. Anger rose. Sleeping in class was disrespect. "Lift your head," the teacher said sharply. The girl did not respond. The teacher paused her lesson. "Lift your head," she repeated. Slowly, the girl raised her face. Her eyes looked strange, unfocused, distant, as though her mind was somewhere far away from the classroom. "What are you doing?" the teacher asked. No answer. The teacher walked closer. That was when she noticed movement beneath the desk. The girl's hands were busy. "Stand up," the teacher ordered. Reluctantly, the girl stood, and that was when the teacher saw them. Two small dolls. They were not the plastic dolls children usually played with. These were crude, handmade figures, wrapped in old pieces of cloth and tied carefully with thread. The sight angered the teacher instantly. In her mind, the girl was deliberately mocking her authority. "During my lesson," she shouted, "playing while I'm teaching?" The girl said nothing. The classroom was silent. The teacher raised her cane and flogged the girl. The cane landed once, then again. Then something happened that nobody was prepared for. The girl screamed. Not the usual cry of a punished child. This scream was deep, piercing, and unnatural. It echoed off the walls. The girl collapsed to the floor, screaming uncontrollably. Her scream was so loud that teachers in nearby classrooms rushed out. Pupils spilled into corridors. Lessons stopped abruptly. The entire school descended into chaos. No matter how much they tried to calm her, she did not stop. She screamed as if her soul had been torn apart. People tried to hold her. She resisted with unnatural strength. That was when they began to notice things that didn't make sense. Her voice sounded layered, like more than one voice crying at the same time. Her body twisted in ways that made people step back in fear. She clutched one of the dolls tightly to her chest. The other doll lay on the classroom floor, unmoving. Some teachers began praying. Some pupils cried. Others ran. Then the girl began to speak, but not clearly. Her words were broken, disjointed. "You have killed my child. She will pay. A life for a life." Fear swept through the room. Someone whispered the words nobody wanted to say aloud. "This child is not ordinary." They sent for elders immediately. Then, after much hesitation, they invited a native doctor. When the native doctor arrived, the girl stopped screaming abruptly. She lifted her head and stared directly at him. The room fell silent. The air felt heavy, thick, as though something unseen had entered with him. The native doctor sat before the girl and began chanting softly, speaking words few people understood. The girl responded, not with words at first, but with tears. Then slowly, she began to speak clearly. After a long moment, The native doctor stood and faced the teachers. What you think are dolls, he said quietly, are not toys. Everyone held their breath. This child exists in two worlds, he continued. Her body sits in your classroom, but her spirit was elsewhere. He explained that the girl was playing with her children in the spiritual realm. The dolls represented her infant children. When the teacher flogged her, he said slowly, one doll fell. The classroom was dead silent. That fall, he continued, was the fall of her child. The girl's screaming was not from pain. It was grief. One of her children had died. The girl lifted her head and looked directly at the teacher. You killed my child, she said calmly. I will take one of yours. The teacher collapsed. She begged. She cried. The native doctor begged. Other teachers begged. They pleaded for mercy, but the girl shook her head slowly. A life for a life, she said. Then she stood, calm, silent. She walked out of the classroom, out of the school. Nobody tried to stop her. Nobody could. Days passed. The school returned to normal, on the surface. Then the teacher's child fell ill. Doctors found nothing. The illness had no name. The child cried endlessly at night. He spoke of dreams, of a girl, of dolls. Within days he died, mysteriously. Nobody ever saw the pupil again. And from that day on, elders warned teachers quietly. Not every child is only a child. Not every distraction is disobedience. Some screams are not from pain, but from a loss you cannot see. They say the girl was never seen again. But stories like this are not told to be remembered. They are told to be heeded. Not every distraction is disobedience. Not every child is only a child. And sometimes a scream is not a reaction to pain, but to a loss no one else can see. Do you believe this story is true, or just a warning passed down in silence? You've been listening to African Strange Scary Stories. Until the next story, mind your words and listen closely.